So I wanted to do what would I do differently for my workbench. And I want to talk about the construction of the bench first. So the bottom is all used 2x4s that I mortise and tenon together, and then I pegged those mortise and tenons. So the legs are two 2x4s glued together, and all the stretchers are just individual 2x4s that I tenoned into those legs. There is then a tenon that comes into the top, and then the top is cut out for that tenon. And there was not a lot to say about it. I drilled out the top on both sides for a little bit more space, and then put two vices on. Now these are really good vices, so I totally wouldn't change those. They're very expensive vices that I got for basically free, and I mean they're really quite amazing, to be honest. I can actually pull this one out of view. It has about let me measure how much depth that vise has. About 12 inches of space in between the jaws with a quick release. A really heavy duty screw. Let's put on pine chocks for those. And so what would I change? And I don't think there's all too much I would change. Obviously this is what I was able to do with the two big pieces of maple that we had. Then we just put a little bit more maple on the ends to get the right length. But this is pretty minimal. Now the bench is very sturdy, right? So it's pretty immovable. It's very heavy. To be honest, the vices probably doubled the weight of the bench when you put them on. So the bench is maybe 100, a little bit over 100 pounds, but with the vices it's probably over 200 pounds. And I think that's important to remember, that you need a good heavy bench, so the vices definitely did that. I had to actually cut out this leg for that vise, and over here I actually had to cut out part of this stretcher, the stretcher underneath this leg, and actually part of this leg I also had to chop out. It didn't weaken the bench that much, but I feel like I should have moved this over. But really, to do that, it would have had to be a whole another 2 inches over, and it's not where I wanted those holes to be, but I think it's alright. It just took a little bit more time to install that vise. And there's not a whole lot I would change. Obviously, if it was a dream bench, yeah, the top would be thicker and it would be bigger, but there's no need for that with what I'm doing with it, and this is going to last basically forever anyway, so it's not really an issue of what I would do differently. Now I do have some wooden dogs here, and here I can make as many of those as I want. I also made a dog with that vise, and so those work fine. There's nothing I would change about those. I think I'm going to move that one. There's nothing I would really change. These, again, I think I already showed these. It's just a piece of dowel, 3/4 inch dowel that you cut 3 grooves in, and then you put a coat hanger, and that holds it into the dog hole. Now, because the top of this bench is only about 1 inch and 13/16 thick, hold downs are a little bit less applicable in this sense, because you really need like 6 or 7 inches of a bench top to really use a hold down. So I think I could use a hold down on this bench, but I'm not going to. What I would instead do, instead of that hold down, is I would get a small F-clamp. This is an F-clamp. This is the style that I would look for. See, so this is an F-clamp. You can get the little small, like 6 or 8 inch ones at Harbor Freight for like $5. And what you'd do then is you'd come to the end, and you'd take a grinder and either drill or grind out that rivet. Then you can drop these into these holes. I just hit a vise. You can drop them. You can drop them inside. And now what you'd be able to do is you'd be able to have this section would be on the bottom, so it would actually be upside down to what it is now. That'd be on the bottom and this would be on top, and that would act like a hold down, but it wouldn't put as much force on the dog holes of the bench. And so that's what I would do before I bought a hold down, because you can buy like 20 clamps for the price of one hold down. And so this is what I would probably end up doing, contrary to a hold down. So I'm not overly concerned. Not overly concerned with the thickness of the top, because you don't need a thick top if you can get a sturdy enough bench, because usually a thicker top gives obviously a heavier and a sturdier bench, but if you can get a good sturdy bench with a thinner top, then you obviously don't need as thick a top. And I don't think there's anything I would really change about this bench. Maybe if I were to do it again, obviously the top would be larger, but everything seems to be pretty good. I got basically everything out of it that I wanted. I don't think there's anything else I would really look for in this bench. But if there's anything else you would change, tell me about that. Now, how I designed this is, as you can see, the front is flush, so that way you can use the leg vise, and you can clamp in with that, and then you can clamp also to the table. The sides, there's about a 6-inch overhang on either side, and the back. So, this is what I was talking about. This was a top stretcher and a bottom stretcher, and on the other side, see here I had to cut out that stretcher, and over here, I'll grab a flashlight, and that way we'll be able to see it a little bit better. And over here I had to cut out both the leg and a good majority of this top stretcher. So it didn't weaken the bench all too much, but I still had to do it, and I didn't like doing it because I had to do that. And also what I would have done is I would have changed these tenons a little bit, because I had them so long. I ended up fitting the first 2 inches and then banging the rest of it down. But the bottom was far too tight. Still fit, but I blew out the front of here and the front of here. I repaired it so you can't really see, but I ended up blowing out the front of that, which certainly I didn't like having that happen, but that was just because I didn't cut the tenons to a rough length. I just had them at like 4 inches long, and then this was only 1.75 inches, so I ended up fitting the wrong portion of the tenon. But otherwise it works well. Would have fit these vices a little bit better, but because I didn't drill the holes for the bolts perfectly square, I couldn't get them perfectly square underneath on the mounts. So it is what it is, but I'm happy with that because I was able to get both the actual faces here pretty much square. So see, this is parallel with the bench, and that's really what I was looking for. So that's, I guess, an overview of the bench. I wouldn't change anything, I don't think. I like it as it is. Some people would say you should add feet to it. I don't need feet. It doesn't tip as it is. Now, if you take it, you hit it, it rocks a little bit this way, but just use that vise. If it rocks a little bit the other way, use that vise. And that's kind of what you have to know. It's very secure that way. So, use it the way it's meant to be used. Now remember, that's contrary to the other vise, so the other bench, I mean. Here, let me stand this camera back up. Give me a second. Gotta kind of Mickey rig it here. Alright, see, so that's that. So, this bench, very secure. It doesn't move all too much. It does rock a little bit, but that doesn't concern me because it really doesn't move this way. That's like this bench, however, with one hand I can move. And now that's moving after I've already supported the back of it with an oak 2x6. So without the oak 2x6 it was like one finger and you could move it super easy. So that's to replace this bench. There's no drawers, but I don't need drawers. I have other means of storage, and really they just weakened the whole bench because there wasn't room for top supports and aprons. So I could also put a shelf on here. The issue with putting a shelf in, because I could put a shelf on these stretchers, or a little drawer or something here on these. The issue with doing that is, sure, you can put a shelf there, but then all the sawdust that falls through the dog holes falls right onto your shelf. That's why I didn't want a shelf, because the same thing happened with that is the top drawer would get all filled up with sawdust because it went right through the dog holes. So, don't think I'd change anything about the bench. Tell me if you would change anything. And I think that's going to be it. So stay tuned. I'm going to have some more videos coming in the future. Really trying to amp up video production as I'm doing this. So stay tuned. There's going to be more later on.